No resolution, but consensus as striking PSV operators meet with the Transport Authority. A mother grieves as her son falls victim to another episode of gun violence in Barbados. And coming up in sports, Floyd Reefer still has his eyes on the permanent West Indies head coach position.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. The newly formed PSV Workers Association believes yesterday's strike was a success. Public Relations Officer Fabian Wharton says it led to today's meeting between representatives of the association and the Transport Authority. Sharika Griffith has that story.
Cordial and full of valuable suggestions. That's how talks between the Transport Authority and the newly formed PSV Association have been described after a more than 4-hour-long meeting. Nothing has been fully resolved, but both parties walked away from today's meeting with a sense of satisfaction.
We achieved what we wanted to achieve. We wanted to have dialogue. We got that. We got our chance to be heard and for our concerns to be vented, and to have an opportunity to have a discussion as it relates to how the industry goes forward from an operator perspective. So we have achieved what we wanted to achieve.
One of the main issues discovered was the prevalence of what representatives from the Transport Authority and the PSV Association refer to as a lot of misinformation.
Some of the things we spoke about this morning regarding the uniforms was this whole notion that you had to buy a minimum of 10, which is pure nonsense. That was never ever raised by certainly not by Transport Authority or none of the suppliers. But suffice to say that there are alternatives and there are options for uniforms at a much better price, and there are options now to be where perhaps there might not have to be an expenditure in terms of a uniform for some people.
The PSV operators also sought clarity on the much talked about 3-strike rule, and it was discovered that it was actually part of the amendments to the Road Traffic Act passed by the former administration in 2017.
The authority has its own complaints procedure, and as we discussed today, it doesn't really impinge on that that amendment to the Road Traffic Act. We have been carrying out our business, and as far as we have been aware, it doesn't call for any draconian measures at all.
The Transport Authority and PSV workers will be meeting again in the not-too-distant future. However, the authority's remit is with the owners of the PSVs, and as such, it must be careful not to encroach on the owners' rights. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Users of public transportation are hoping for a speedy resolution of the issues which led to yesterday's strike. CBC spoke with some passengers in the Constitution River Terminal who are thankful the operators have agreed to return to work.
It's a relief because it's easier the vans are a lot easier to get on my route. Transport board, the transport board bus is very difficult to get. Sometimes you have to wait hour, 2 hours, 3 hours for a bus.
Feel very good that the vans are back on the road, and I just hope that they will, everyone involved will be able to come together and do something profitable for the country, and for the rest of the year, let us start right.
I am very glad. By any day, they still need to have their problems resolved. So I think they need to look into the issues. I mean, some of them need sprucing up, order ways, and the behavior, but at the end of the day, you can't class everybody because you see one person doing one thing, but I think they need to have their differences sorted out. But I'm very glad they're back on the road.
Tears flowed freely all day as the news of the murder of popular tattoo artist Shaquille Toppin spread like wildfire across the island. I visited his Black Rock residence this evening, where relatives and friends were still struggling to come to grips with what happened. This sand attempts to cover the stains of a sad story. A story where Shaquille Toppin was shot numerous times just meters outside of his home, but it cannot cover up the pain of a grieving mother.
And them shoot my child because they were like a dog. And he don't listen.
They shot my child in the road like a dog, and he didn't deserve it. Choking on tears, Paulinia Gibson-Toppin painfully recalled last night's dreadful events.
My kitchen table began to have supper, and my son came in, and he called me and said, "Mommy, open the door, I don't have my key." So I walked to open the door, and he walked behind me and came in the house, went in his bedroom, put some money in his pocket. I said, "Shaq, you going back out?" He said, "Yes, I'm going back out." So I come and lock the door, and I closed the door. Just as I walked back to the kitchen, me and my daughter heard these gunshots. Pow, 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 pow. So we hit the floor, and she said, "Mommy, Shaki, no going out."
And then soon after, their worst fears became a reality.
We laid on the floor so scared, and she said, "Mommy, Shaki, no going out." And I heard the noise and the confusion. I heard the guys crying and hollering, and the women, I don't know where they come from so fast. And my neighbors calling me. And for the time I heard they calling me, I knew it was him. And that's all I could. I just freaked out. I couldn't go to see him. I could bear to see my child like that.
Shaquille was well known for his tattoo parlor Top Tats, and his mother told us how proud she was of him.
I said to him, "Shaquille, buy your shop." He said, "Mommy, I don't have the money." He said, "I work towards it." And I took him for his first loan of material. And he worked and he built the shop piece by piece, piece by piece. And then when he wanted to build the cupboards and everything, he said, he's going to have to pay somebody to do them. I said, "No, Shaki, you could do that yourself." He said, "Mommy, no, I can't." I said, "Yes, you can do it yourself." And he did.
Well, no matter who we spoke to, they all had genuinely positive messages about Shaquille Toppin.
The guys fall on the ground, they cry. The guys said, the police said they've never seen nobody. People come out so much, they talk so much about some person. Because all the guys came at the hospital, came here to talk to the police about how good he is. And he is very humble.
Shaquille Toppin was 24 years old. Well, less than 40 employees of the Barbados Agricultural Management Company Limited will be affected as the state-owned enterprise begins the involuntary phase of its retrenchment process. This from the Barbados Workers Union's Deputy General Secretary and Director of Organizing, Dwayne Paul, following a meeting between the two entities at the BAMC's headquarters this afternoon. He says, however, it's important to note that this figure does not include those who have agreed to voluntary separation or management and supervisory staff. BAMC Manager Leslie Paris, while not confirming any figures for employees expected to be affected, notes that the meeting was productive. He says an official brief detailing the agreement for the workers would be released tomorrow. The Barbados Union of Teachers has expressed satisfaction with the start of the new term. BUT President Sean Spencer says most schools started yesterday without incident. Now, given the importance of the term, he notes there will be several interruptions, including for sports. And Mr. Spencer tells CBC News that teachers will be pressing students to get them ready for examinations, both internal and external. Meanwhile, the BUT remains concerned about the impact of the removal of general workers from across the primary school system. The BUT boss says they will continue to agitate for improved physical conditions in schools. Fire has gutted another home in the Christchurch community of Harts Gap. That blaze occurred at 17 minutes to 9. Two tenders from the Probin Street Fire Station, along with 9 fire officers under the command of Divisional Officer Ernie Fields, were quickly dispatched. Fire officials say the 3 bedrooms and a bathroom, along with the contents of the home, were extensively damaged. Back in December last year, a fire completely destroyed another home in Harts Gap. Budgetary and resource constraints are having an impact on the state-owned Barbados Transport Board's ability to rectify problems in a timely manner. Chairman Gregory Nichols says he is not happy with the state of bathroom facilities, both for staff and commuters. He says he has consistently complained about the matter.
If the staff bathrooms at Transport Board are in the condition that they are in, and that is deplorable. And then he wants for the general public, it is really unacceptable. These things have not got like this overnight, and we have to address them.
Mr. Nichols says the board has set standards for the terminals, and where these standards are not met, they will intervene.
There are some roofing issues at the Spikestone terminal where paneling and the guttering are dropping off and creating, posing challenges or potential challenges for a traveling public. We have addressed those. We have communicated or sent off communication to the relevant ministry and to the Transport Authority to address these issues, because our commuters travel in these terminals. So we are doing our best, but these problems did not arise overnight, and they will be solved systematically over time.
Director of the School of Education, University of the West Indies, Cape Hill Campus, Professor Joel Warken, sees partnerships as important in educating Caribbean people. He shares the view during the Eastern Caribbean Joint Board of Teacher Education annual meeting.
None of us have all that is needed, but together we have sufficient to have a considerable impact. We must think of sustainability and encouraging resilience. I think these are two things that we must focus on as we think about education. Not only resilience in the face of natural hazards, but also resilience in the face of social, economic, technological, and political changes.
Professor Warken wants education officials to do away with systems, he says, that are not only well entrenched, but no longer useful.
We are so accustomed to doing things with the flow, and we seem to think that there is nothing that we can do to stop the slide, that slide down a road that is not to our advantage. We, the intellectuals, the thinkers and technocrats, must put aside those shackles and make the decision that can propel the region forward. Some of these decisions, I believe, will be hard because they may shatter the status quo.
In the next 4 to 6 weeks, staff and patients of the respiratory unit in the Queen Elizabeth Hospital will have a fresh new space to function in. This following a donation of $60,000 from the Rotary Club of Barbados West, which will go towards covering final construction costs for the unit's renovation. Head of the Department of Internal Medicine, Dr. Anne-Marie Hassel, says the donation is a good example of the good that can result from public-private sector partnerships.
Has come at a very timely occasion, and this is again, as the CEO would say, another good partnership between the public and private sector, and we appreciate this kind of support. And it's nice to know that it's not just Rotary Club, but we have other institutions who will follow suit because of what Rotary does and because of what other institutions do. People will recognize that it is good to give to QEH and that we can preserve and maintain what is given to us.
Meanwhile, President of the Rotary Club of Barbados West, Morton Holder, pledged the club's continued support for the QEH.
We've decided to make this donation and to continuously be there with the hospital, whether it's via donation of this type, whether it's via maintenance or equipment, and especially seeing that asthma is such a prevailing condition within Barbados. Being an asthma sufferer myself, I do know the need and what is required. So Rotary West was definitely excited and willing to assist in this venture.